So I'm going to keep my my Fender Telecaster t-shirt on and keep my telly here to talk about another telly guy who I absolutely love, which is Richie Kotzen, who's somebody that, for some bizarre reason, I never really knew he existed until I saw him talking to Justin Hawkins on Justin Hawkins Rides Again towards the end of last year, or maybe a bit earlier than that. But yeah, it's kind of mad how I just never came across him. I was never aware of him and his music, and even though he'd been in bands that I loved, he'd been in Poison, and yeah, I didn't know him. I didn't know who he was, which is just seems crazy to me. But back in the day, I think you have to kind of remember that in the early 90s, obviously there was no internet. I know I go on about this all the time because I'm old, but we didn't have access to a lot of information about the members of bands. You knew stuff about the big rock stars. If you had access to MTV, you saw interviews and stuff like that. And as I said, I used to go around to my friend's house. I didn't have MTV, and we used to watch it, but I don't particularly remember seeing him in any sort of interviews like that. And I think, to be honest, when you've got a huge frontman, a big star like Bret Michaels, then he would have probably done all the talking anyway. So I just wouldn't have remembered the guitarist, who actually at the time I thought was CC DeVille. Well, actually that was the guitarist from Poison, but until Richie joined, and then sort of subsequently left. So yeah, I just didn't know about him until relatively recently. And then once I did, and realised that he'd written some of my favourite songs, some of my favourite Poison songs, Until You Suffer Some Fire and Ice that's one of my all-time favourite songs, ever. And Stand, which is a brilliant song, and the whole of Native Tongue, which is their best album, and I think Richie kind of more or less wrote most of it. So I just didn't know. But then of course, I've subsequently been listening to all his solo stuff, listening to the Winery Dogs stuff, and the things that he's been doing with Adrian Smith in Smith Kotzen, where Julia, his wife, also plays bass on that as well. It's all superb, it's all fantastic, it's all brilliant. And again, I think in a similar way to Jeff Buckley, actually, Richie Kotzen is one of those guys who's got everything. He has got it all. He's an amazing singer, he's just an incredibly talented vocalist. Songwriting, he's written some incredible songs, and obviously his guitar playing, and going back through sort of his early stuff, I think it's quite funny that he started out as one of those shred guys, and he was on Shrapnel Records, and he was sort of getting a reputation of being known for being this sort of hard rock, kind of fast playing shred guy, when actually I don't feel like that's him at all. It just isn't. And obviously as he's progressed and made more of the kind of music that he wants to make and that reflects what has influenced and inspired him, I think it's actually quite interesting that it's a lot more sort of funky, sort of soul, R&B kind of based stuff. I mean, obviously it also rocks as well, But a song like War Paint, which has just got this kind of driving rock rhythm, but it's also got a lot of the kind of soul and funk elements that he's obviously kind of grown up with and been into. But yeah, his vocals, I said before, I think are heavily influenced by people like Prince, and I can definitely hear that, how he moves so easily and fluidly through his range, and he goes up into the kind of beautiful kind of high falsetto bits, and then comes like back into kind of his more powerful, deeper, richer tone. Obviously that's kind of all that influence coming through. So to me, I just feel like he's got everything. He's incredible. Really enjoy listening to his stuff. Cannot wait to go and see him next month. So excited. In London. So yeah, just insanely excited for that. Can't wait. But couldn't put him in the top 5 because he's very kind of new to me, and so I'm enjoying, just at the moment, immersing myself in 30 plus years of his back catalogue, and yes, having a new musician to obsess over. It's been absolutely wonderful.